The incident, of course, shows how tricky it can be to navigate airspace. For more perspective on all of this, I'm joined via Skype by Captain Tom Trotter. He's in Colorado. He's retired from the U.S. Navy. Tom, take us inside the cockpit. I mean, we have two different versions here. What's it going to take to settle what really happened, and what's your thought on this? Because you've actually been in a situation where you're in a cockpit where you could actually know exactly what would be going on in a situation like this.
Well, what I would say first off is that the speed with which things happen and the time compression is incredible. If you look at Syria, it's only about 300 miles from one end to the other and maybe 200 miles in width. And all that can take place in 8 or 10 minutes. And in this case, they're crossing, they're allegedly crossing a border, that lasts 15 seconds. So everything happens at this extremely rapid pace. So the decision and the decision-making process is incredibly quick, where you have to know how to react to what's happening in the sky. You're often moving, two aircraft can be moving at 20 miles every minute towards each other if they're right near supersonic. So, and then these missiles travel at 3 times that speed. So as you can imagine, things happen quick, particularly if you're only 15 or 17 seconds in somebody's airspace.
Tom, what's the typical protocol when it comes to communication among pilots from different countries? I mean, are there different protocols, or is there a standard?
Well, there's a standard that you would normally monitor, what's called GUARD. It's a frequency in the UHF spectrum. 243.0 is what it usually is. And that's what they claim that they gave the warning on. Now, you don't know if they were listening on the right frequency or it got transmitted. Did it get transmitted clearly? Did they, they can say they warned them 10 times, but did they receive it any times? Did they receive it at all? So, what normally happens, though, is it's all pre-briefed. There's an air tasking order. So it's all orchestrated with who is where geographically in a combat zone. But in this case, number one, it's a small area, and secondly, there are so many players. I liken it to 4 or 5 football teams showing up for a game on the same field, and then you try to umpire it, and nobody's talked to each other. So there's a lot of different factions vying for the same airspace.
Okay, as you just described that, are you surprised that we haven't seen more incidents like this?
Oh, I'm shocked that this hasn't happened, a couple times. I'm surprised this is the first one. But the speed with which some of these nations are involved, there's absolutely no way there could be detailed prior planning with one another, that a coalition force has gotten together. I can tell you when Desert Shield led to Desert Storm, there were weeks and weeks of planning. Now we've seen the French have moved an aircraft carrier to the, I'll assume it's in the Eastern Mediterranean, and then where the Air Force is operating, probably somewhere out of Turkey, if in fact they're in Incirlik. So you've got then the Russians, where are they coming from? Syrian bases, perhaps? So I doubt that there's real close coordination that's got a commander in charge of the whole group. I think you've got several factions that are sort of doing what they think is right to go against ISIS or rebel forces or whoever it is.
You're saying do what they think is right. The pilot says he's flown in this area lots of times. He felt like he was over Syrian airspace. Could navigation systems be off where he thinks he's flying in an area that's perfectly okay, and then Turkey sees it a different way?
Sure. That, you could say, is he using a GPS system? Is he using the Russian system GLONASS? The Russians claim that they had him tracked on one of their satellite systems and that they've got a path for where he was. But, you're moving along at 8 miles every minute. So, for that 15 seconds, were you exactly where you thought you were? How much lag is there in the system with where they were and were they maneuvering? So you could easily be off by a mile. And that's sort of what they claim happened.
Tom, one final question before you go. Do you think Turkey was trigger happy? I mean, this was said to be in Turkish airspace for just a matter of seconds. Is that normal?
Well, that's the normal course of business, which what we used in Iraq, when you had a no-fly zone or you had territorial airspace, is that if they were to fire on, or we were to fire on one, the wreckage normally would have to land within that territorial airspace. So what I'm saying is, did they go so far into Turkey that they were shot down in Turkey and they had to eject in Turkey? So you could easily have targeted them from Turkey in Syrian airspace, because the missiles are capable of flying quite some distance. So, and the same thing will hold true when they put surface-to-air missile systems in Syria. You can now be looking at Turkish fighters, and they'll have a problem because the systems will reach out a long ways to target enemy aircraft.
It's all fascinating and very, very murky. Tom Trotter from Colorado, thanks so much.